we're going to be talking about how to optimize your own mindset. Now, whether you are the team at the moment, if you're a sole trader, or if you've got a team, we've got to get your mindset in the right place, all right? So a big part of optimizing your team is making sure you're in the right headspace. Then we're going to be looking at capacity planning, like how do we plan for this period, and why should we plan for this period? Then we're going to talk about how do we have this, how do we optimize our team by having great conversations with them. And then I'm going to really get you guys committed to, getting your hires started ASAP, because come December, it's going to be nearly impossible to hire anyone. And we'll explain that as well. So what we're going to be doing now is diving into week 2 of the December Domination series in preparation for how do we handle this period. If I think back, the amount of years that I made these mistakes that cost the business so much money. And usually it's, after working my guts out for, the whole couple of weeks, the 4 weeks of December, trying to really get through everything. And then to look at it in January and be like, why did we make it? Why was it a negative month? Why did we lose so much money when we were so busy? Now, coming back to some of the things that we've talked about in week 1, there's way less billable hours in December and January as well, depending on when you stop work and finish and start work again. Something you really need to consider is how many billable days are you going to be working, and how do we manage that? And how can we be more profitable when we have less billable days? So we'll dive more into how can we be more profitable? How can we balance out the December, rush in terms of profitability and fill January next week in week 3. But this week is all about getting your team aligned with what needs to happen. Now, thinking back as well, some of the things that happened when it came into December so many years in a row, when reflecting back on it and now seeing so many other people deal with the same thing, I didn't have a real good awareness of the impact of something like leave was having on our ability to make money that month as well. And so getting your team's mindset in the right place is what we're going to be talking about today. So first of all, let's start with you. So you really need to understand what is your role through December in your business. You need to get really clear on this, and it's worth you taking a little bit of time actually sitting and going, okay, for December to work really well, I need to be doing these things and not these things. Having what your job isn't is a really important thing as well, because if you get sucked into things that aren't your responsibility, and it would be better if your team just handled that, you're gonna have other problems down the line. So we need to get you aligned with who you are through this period, and how can we do everything we can to keep you in the position that's going to have the biggest impact on your business. Now, if you guys haven't seen the multiplier effect, this applies a lot through December. And as you'll see as well, what you see in December and January is just another business cycle, but it's a predictable one. It's one that we know that there's elements in the ecosystem that forces this pressure on every business, not just yours. But these cycles happen year in, year out. They're always happening throughout the year, whether they're as intensely high and as intensely low as a December and January situation. Well, it depends. There's sometimes the same amount of pressure can be created when you lose a couple of tradies all of a sudden, so we've just got to have an awareness that, what is your role through this period? Now, for me, I know that the things that stopped us doing well in December was when I got back on the tools, and then I stopped, being able to schedule jobs efficiently, rearrange jobs, look into January and start planning for January. All these things didn't happen when I got too overwhelmed. So it's your responsibility to get really clear on what your role is. Something else I want you to do is, last week we reflected on previous Decembers, but I want you to do a if everything goes right situation for December, but as well as a negative visualization of what's the things that could go wrong. And it's your responsibility as a business owner to start thinking like this. what's going to go wrong? What could happen? Someone could get injured. Someone could get sick. Because I fell in the trap a lot of always thinking of the best case scenario. And when something didn't happen to plan, I wasn't ready for it. I didn't have a backup plan. So a great way to start building the backup plan is to think about what could happen. Like, what if someone, randomly got sick for 2 weeks? We don't want to think about that, but maybe it will happen. So what can we do in preparation for that? What if you get way more work than you're expecting? How can we prepare for that? And these are the sort of things that's going to drive the actions of like preparing now and getting ready, right? For all the things that could happen. The other thing is I want you to stay proactive and on your role. So don't start getting reactive. So reactive, like a reactive mindset through December will throw your whole team out. So get really, like, this comes back to your role and your responsibilities, and you know what you're doing. So if you fall into the trap of going out and helping that person, then going over here and becoming really reactive again, you're going to find it hard to manage your team if you've got one, and yourself if you don't have one. So that's something I want you to think about. So capacity planning, it's a big part of December. How do we make sure that we've planned for the load that's about to come in? Now, the cool thing about December is, and why we call the Gold Rush Summit the Gold Rush Summit, is there's an opportunity, if you have capacity in December, to take work from the people who can't keep up with the workload. You know how many times, if you just reflect on yourself and people call you up when you're that busy and you just have to say no, or you try and squeeze it in, but it puts extra pressure on the team, or you go and do the job instead. And so what happens is you're all that over capacity, and that's when mistakes happen. That's when people call in sick. That's when people are burning out. That's when all those problems happen. So capacity planning means that we've prepared for this peak in workload, but also with the mindset, which we're going to cover in week number 4, of how do we scrape all of these jobs that everyone else can't keep up with. And the way you do it is by having capacity coming into December. So if you don't have capacity, what I mean by that is if your guys are already too busy now, or like you can see them getting like over busy, then we've got a problem already. So what we can do is prepare for that, and we're going to talk about that later in the session. So another thing that I want you guys to consider is sitting your team down now and having a conversation with them about December and what's about to come. Now, if you remember last week, I talked about it's better that you've got the situation where people are expecting it to be crazy out of this world busy, but then you come in less, It's that whole thing of like your boss calling you up when you used to work for someone at 3:30 and going, hey, can you just do one more job for me? And you're like, damn it, I was ready to go home, right? Same thing with, a zoomed out approach for a whole month. If you prepare everyone for what's about to come, everyone's not like, oh shit, like I wasn't expecting to work this hard through December. So it's better that you create like, this is what we're going to deal with, and it's less work, and they'll feel good about that, than the other way around, where you're going to see a lot more sick days, a lot more complaints, a lot more bad attitude at work. And the way that I recommend you structure this meeting is to get everyone involved in what does December look like for us, and have a whiteboard and get everyone just saying, guys, what is like, say if we dominate December, how is that going to look for us? Like, how do we need to show up? What's our mindset like? With overtime, who's committed to doing overtime through this period? Getting everyone to buy in this really challenging time is going to help you maximize your profitability, because you're going to have more people at work with the right attitude versus not having it. Does that make sense? You all follow me on that? Yeah. So this meeting is really, really important. Then set goals. And if you can do your one-on-ones now and just say, look, if you can, let's set some goals for you through December and January, so that you can help the staff member lift by giving them something to work towards, and some, if you want to discuss like Christmas bonuses and all that sort of stuff, based on attitude and some criteria, then you can do that as well. And it's a great time to do this right now. And that's why we're doing the December Domination series earlier than, shit's too late, right? We really need to start thinking about it. Then open the floor, right? Let your team have the conversation as well. Like, what do you guys need? How can I support you better through December? How can we get more clients? How can we do more work? Because the other thing we see in December is if you're at capacity, your team, if you're doing any sort of service work, they'll rush in and rush out, and they won't do any extras on site. So you're missing this opportunity that's there purely because you're over capacity, right? Your team is pumping, right? You've got too much work coming in, it's out of your control, and you're taking it all on, and now everyone's just got all their jobs squeezed in on the schedule, but it doesn't leave room for them to connect with the customer and maximize the value of the jobs they go to. And so again, this comes back to our team meeting and making sure we're having these conversations with them early so that we can manage this. So now is the time to hire. So if you think about it, if we get to December and you're like, oh shit, I've heard we've needed to hire, now I'll put my ad up in December, it's probably too late. I've really struggled to hire people who I've not already had conversations with earlier in December. Like, people aren't looking for jobs in December. They're already locked in with whatever business they're with, and they're just trying to get through the Christmas. Show of hands who understands that. Like, that's what's going on. So the psychology isn't, I'm going to look for another job coming into Christmas. The psychology is, fuck, I'll put my head down, get this shit done, and then I'll go look for another job in January. I hear this so often from our members. It's like, yep, I'm just going to get through December, then I'll hire in January. Guys, we need to flip that. It's the wrong time to hire in January. While we can get some good snags and there's people looking, if we haven't managed this period properly, we won't have the work for them in January. So if you've got sucked into being reactive through December and you're just trying to get through the workload and you haven't planned for January and you haven't got jobs on the schedule for January, you won't have any work and you won't have any money to hire anyone in January. But if we hire now, then that's going to help. You're going to have all this workload to push onto their schedule, and you'll maximize profit. And then you can hire again in January probably as well, because you would have stayed in a position of scheduling and proactively working to, fill out January, which you're going to learn about next week, dynamic pricing and proactive scheduling. So you're going to learn that and how you can do that. But if you do that well, you're going to probably be able to get 2 hires in the next 2 months. If you don't do it well, you might have the intention to hire someone in January, but you won't have the work and you won't have the money. And the reason I say that with so much conviction is I've seen it happen over and over again. And the other thing is, if we don't get this period right, not only won't you be able to hire in January, you have no money, the BAS bill hits in February, and then you're so burnt out and stressed that it might take you sometimes 4 to 6 months to even recover from that. So it's really important that we hire now. And the other thing is, and what I want everyone that's here today and watching back to commit to, is at least getting an ad up today. I've even spoken to people last week where I know they needed a hire, and they're like, oh yeah, I've just been so busy. I was like, it's 10 minutes. 10 minutes, get an ad up, and once you've got the ad up, the applications will be coming in. And even if it's a whole week before you look at it again, at least the applications are sitting there and you can start making those phone calls. The other thing about preparing to hire is you don't have to hire anyone. Like, if you've put the ad up, you've interviewed people, you've got a short list of people, and you've got them sitting there waiting, then if the workload is as crazy as it might be for you, then it's just pull the trigger and hire the person, right? Because you've got the confidence, because you've got so much work. Let's flip that around and go, I'll put an ad up when I feel like I've got enough work to hire, right? That will always come too late. So then you put the ad up, no one's looking in December, so no one's applying, so you have no interviews and you don't get a staff member, and you're back in that situation where you can't handle the workload. Show of hands who's understanding me? Yep. All right, in the chat, I want a commitment for everyone that's here to put an ad up this week. So just put the ad up. I'm not saying you have to hire someone. Even if you're like, fuck, I don't know if I'm ready. Get an ad up, all right? We want an ad up. We want the applications coming in. I want you to start, thanks Nick. Get the ad up. You can start calling people and talking to people. You can start to interview people, and then you have your short list, and when the time's right, you pull the trigger. And if you're lucky, you might have 1 or 2 applicants that are good, and you can already start to plan it out, right? You can go, you start in December and this other guy or girl starts in January. And so that's what's so important about doing it this week, is because even if you're not going to hire, it's still us practicing the action of preparing to hire. And you might shortlist people and you might not get the right amount of work, but you might even find the people you're going to hire in the new year just by having it all set up and ready to go. Now, those of you in Freedom Fighters, Rory's been doing the hiring toolkit masterclass this month. So if you go over to the DIY masterclasses today or whenever you're ready to do this, and he's got the first and second week done, as those are getting recorded, by the way, as well, they get put in there. So you can follow along even if you're not in the live and do those. Now, he built out a tool that you can fill in all the questions and put it into ChatGPT, and that will give you a pretty good job ad. And, you know, he's done all the hiring side of it already. So you can go over to your Browse DIY masterclasses. If you're a Freedom Fighter member, go and join the hiring toolkit one. And then there's some great resources and training from Rory on how to get this stuff up and in to your business. Alrighty? Cool. Awesome. Now, just to recap, why you need to start early is because, you know, by committing to hiring and getting capacity in your team, you're going to create this space for where you can scrape opportunity later. Next week, we're going to be diving into dynamic pricing and proactive scheduling. Just by doing those things, you're going to make more profit in December and fill your January. So we're going to show you that stuff as well. In week 4, we're diving into how do you make the most of the opportunity when no one else is keeping up with the workload. No one else hired and created the capacity, and so they're all stressed and overwhelmed, letting their customers down. How do we grab all of that and bring it into your ecosystem and get some customers while everyone else is struggling? Again, it comes back to you having the capacity to be able to handle these things. And then week 5, we're going to be diving into how do you manage those expectations coming into the end of the year. So it's all around people management for your clients. And then finally, we're going to be wrapping up on week 6, helping you switch off and have the best Christmas you possibly could, getting ready for January next year and to launch into the new year. So it's been awesome, guys. Thanks for that.